Brother, most men think silence pushes a woman away. But the raw reality, sometimes silence is the very thing that makes her feel your presence the deepest. Not because you're ignoring her, not because you're playing games, and definitely not because of some manipulative dating trick these fake gurus keep preaching. It's something far more instinctive than that. A woman's subconscious doesn't respond the way most men think it does. Her mind reacts to emotional tension, to uncertainty, to the space between moments. And when a man understands how silence actually works inside female psychology, something shifts. Suddenly, she starts thinking about him when he's not there. She rereads old messages. She wonders why his energy feels different. And without realizing it, her nervous system begins searching for him. Brother, this is the truth almost no one talks about. Because the men who understand silence become unforgettable, and the men who don't, they talk too much, explain too much, chase too much, until attraction quietly dies in front of them. Here on the Attraction Blueprint, we talk about the unfiltered truths most men never hear. The things hidden beneath words, beneath behavior, beneath the masks people wear. And today you're going to understand why going silent can make her mind go crazy when it comes from masculine presence instead of emotional weakness. By the end of this video, you'll never look at attraction the same way again. Because silence is not empty, brother. Silence reveals who actually holds emotional gravity. Most men completely miss this. They think attraction is built by constant communication. More texts, more reassurance, more explaining, more effort. But think about your last conversation with a woman you truly wanted. Maybe she took longer to reply. Maybe her energy shifted, and suddenly your mind became obsessed. You checked your phone more. You reread conversations. You started creating stories in your head. Not because she said more, because she said less. That's the contradiction most men can't handle. Human emotion is not triggered by constant access. It's triggered by emotional uncertainty, by anticipation, by space. And brother, women feel this deeply, especially when the silence comes from a grounded man who isn't emotionally frantic. Now listen carefully. This does not mean disappearing to manipulate someone. That weak energy always gets exposed eventually. Women can feel when silence is fake. Her body knows the difference between a man at peace and a man trying to force a reaction. That's why some men go silent and get ignored, while another man goes silent and suddenly she can't stop thinking about him. The behavior looks identical. The energy behind it is completely different. Let that sink in. Most men communicate from fear. Fear of losing her. Fear of being forgotten. Fear that if they stop texting, she'll move on instantly. So they overcompensate. They flood conversations with energy. They explain themselves too much. They become emotionally loud, and ironically, that pressure suffocates attraction. Because attraction needs emotional oxygen. Brother, her nervous system is constantly reading your emotional state, not your words. Your state. A needy man asks for attention. A grounded man creates emotional curiosity without trying. That's why silence becomes powerful only when it's natural, not forced, not strategic, natural. Here's where it gets deeper. Women are incredibly sensitive to emotional shifts. More than most men realize, especially emotionally intelligent women. When your energy changes, she notices. When your attention withdraws calmly instead of desperately, she notices. When you stop chasing validation, she notices. Even if she never says a word, her subconscious notices first. And this creates something dangerous, because now her mind starts filling in the blanks. Brother, the human brain hates unfinished emotional patterns. That's why songs get stuck in your head. That's why unresolved conversations replay in your mind at 2 a.m. And that's why silence from a man she emotionally felt creates psychological tension. Especially if your presence made her feel safe before the silence happened. That's the key most men miss. The silence only works if emotional impact already exists. You've already earned it. A random man disappearing means nothing. A man she emotionally feels disappearing, completely different story. Now imagine this scene. You're sitting with her late at night. The lights are low, she's talking. Most men interrupt, constantly trying to impress her. But you stay calm, relaxed, present. You listen fully before speaking. Your energy isn't rushed. Your attention feels sacred. And for the first time in weeks, she feels emotionally heard. Brother, do you understand how rare that is now? Most people are addicted to noise. But silence creates emotional depth. And women crave depth far more than men realize. Not surface confidence, not loud dominance, depth. Here's the first level most men never unlock. Level 1 is understanding that silence amplifies emotional meaning. The less emotionally reactive you become, the more your words matter. A man who talks endlessly decreases his emotional weight. A man who speaks with intention creates gravity. That's why calm men often feel more attractive than loud men. not because they're trying harder, because their nervous system feels stable, and stability feels masculine on an instinctive level. But here's the contradiction. Most men become silent after rejection. That silence feels wounded, heavy, passive-aggressive. Women feel that immediately. Real masculine silence doesn't punish, it observes. That changes everything. Think about your last conversation. Did you speak to connect? Or did you speak because you feared losing control? Be honest with yourself, because women can feel when words come from emotional survival, and that energy quietly kills attraction. Pause for a second. This next part might change the way you see relationships forever. Women don't become emotionally attached only through pleasure. They attach through emotional imprinting. Moments that hit the nervous system deeply. Moments that feel different from ordinary interactions. And silence, when paired with emotional safety, creates imprinting, because her subconscious starts associating your presence with emotional calm. That's rare now, especially in a world where everyone is overstimulated, constant notifications, constant talking, constant performance. So when she meets a man whose energy slows her nervous system down, she remembers him. Even when he's absent, especially when he's absent, brother, silence is either anxiety or peace. And women instinctively know which one they're feeling from you. That's the truth almost no one talks about. I knew a guy years ago who struggled badly with women. Good-looking guy, smart too, but every conversation felt rushed. The second a woman pulled away emotionally, he panicked. Double texts, long explanations, trying to fix the vibe. And every time, attraction disappeared. Then something changed. Not his looks, not his money, his nervous system. He stopped reacting emotionally to every shift. He stopped trying to control outcomes. And suddenly women started leaning toward him instead of away from him. One woman literally asked him, "Why do I feel calm around you?" Brother, that question reveals everything. Women are exhausted emotionally. Most men stimulate their anxiety. Very few men regulate it. And the man who regulates her nervous system without even trying becomes unforgettable. Now here's where things become dangerous. Level 2. Silence reveals value. Not social media value, not status, not fake confidence. Internal value. A man who cannot tolerate silence is usually dependent on external reassurance. He needs reactions constantly. Validation, attention, proof. But a man comfortable in silence communicates something primal. I do not fear being alone. And that energy hits deeply inside female psychology, because emotionally secure energy feels safe, instinctive, grounded. Most men think attraction is built through constant pursuit, but women often become emotionally consumed in the space after interaction, after the date, after the conversation, after the eye contact. That's when her imagination activates. That's when emotional replay begins. And brother, imagination is more powerful than persuasion. Always. A woman rarely falls hardest for the man who explains everything. She falls for the man she continues feeling after he leaves. Think about that carefully. Because most men sabotage attraction by overexposing themselves too early, too available, too predictable, too emotionally accessible before emotional depth exists. Mystery alone is not attractive, but emotional restraint, that's different. Emotional restraint creates curiosity, and curiosity pulls attention naturally. This is why some women suddenly text you after days of silence. Not because you manipulated them, because your absence created emotional contrast. Your energy stopped flooding her nervous system, and suddenly she could feel the space you occupied. That's powerful. But listen carefully. If you use silence as a tactic, eventually it collapses, because fake silence carries tension. Real silence carries peace. Her body knows the difference. Always. That's why emotionally mature women often avoid men who perform confidence, but become deeply drawn toward men who embody calm. There's a huge difference. One is theater. The other is presence. And presence cannot be faked for long. Let that sink in. Most men fear silence because silence forces them to confront themselves. No distractions, no validation, no constant stimulation, just themselves. That's why many men chase attention compulsively, because silence exposes insecurity. But brother, the moment you become comfortable sitting alone without needing external approval, your entire energy changes. Women feel it instantly, not logically, chemically. Your eye contact changes, your voice slows down, your reactions soften, you stop trying to impress. And ironically, that's when attraction intensifies, because now your attention feels chosen instead of needy. That changes everything. Here's a micro story you'll recognize immediately. A woman once stopped replying to a man for 2 days. The old version of him would have panicked. This time he didn't chase, didn't post emotional stories online, didn't send paragraphs. He continued living peacefully. When she finally replied, her energy was completely different. More engaged, more curious, more invested. Why? Because his silence communicated emotional stability, not fear. And deep down, that made her feel safe. Brother, women rarely say this openly, but emotional safety is one of the strongest forms of attraction. Not boredom, not passiveness, safety, because when a woman's nervous system feels safe around a man, her guard lowers naturally, her feminine energy softens, her emotions open, and this creates something ancient inside attraction dynamics. Emotional surrender, not submission, not control, surrender. The feeling that she can stop defending herself emotionally around you. Most men never create this feeling because they're too busy performing masculinity instead of embodying it. Now we enter level 3. And this is where most men become uncomfortable. Silence exposes emotional truth. You see, when you stop constantly talking, you start noticing her tone, her pacing, her eyes, the moments she looks away, the moments she leans closer, the tiny emotional signals hidden beneath language. Most men miss this because they're trapped in their own heads, trying to say the perfect thing, trying to avoid rejection, trying to manage outcomes. But calm men observe, and observation creates understanding. Brother, her body is telling you things long before her words do. That's why emotionally intelligent men often seem mysterious. They aren't psychic, they're present. Presence allows you to read emotional reality clearly, and women feel deeply seen by men who notice without forcing. That feeling is addictive, especially today, because very few people feel truly understood anymore. Now here's the final contradiction. The men most afraid of losing women are usually the ones who lose them fastest. Why? Because fear creates pressure. Pressure creates emotional tension, and tension destroys polarity. But when a man genuinely values himself, silence no longer feels threatening. It feels natural, calm, and suddenly his presence becomes emotionally magnetic. Pause here for a moment. Think about your last relationship. How much of your communication came from peace, and how much came from fear? Be honest, because this changes everything. Here's the final insight. When you go silent in a grounded way, her mind doesn't go crazy because she loses control over you. Her mind goes crazy because your energy activated something deeper than logic. Her nervous system felt contrast, calm in a chaotic world, presence in a distracted world, masculine certainty without force. And once a woman experiences that feeling, average energy becomes hard for her to tolerate again. That's the part most men never understand. Attraction is not built through endless performance, it's built through emotional experience. The way she feels before, during, and after interacting with you. And silence amplifies emotional experience when it comes from genuine inner stability. Not games, not tactics, not manipulation. Brother, this is why some men walk away silently and become unforgettable, while others disappear and nobody notices. One man leaves emotional peace behind, the other leaves emotional confusion. Completely different energy. And women respond instinctively to energy long before logic enters the picture. That's the raw reality. So the next time you feel the urge to over-explain yourself, pause. The next time you want to chase reassurance, pause. The next time silence makes you uncomfortable, ask yourself why. Because mastering silence is not about controlling women. It's about controlling your own emotional chaos first. And when a man learns that, everything changes. His relationships, his confidence, his presence, his entire life. Brother, if this message connected with something deep inside you, subscribe to the Attraction Blueprint so more men begin understanding the truths nobody teaches us growing up. Because the next video is going to reveal why women test emotionally strong men without even realizing they're doing it. And once you understand that pattern, you'll start seeing female psychology everywhere.